Yo me, yo me, ay 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 ay.
So in every chair leader, everyone that's here, you were meant to be here. You have lived experiences that are valuable, and you have something important to share with your table. So just remember to bring that with you.
We want to make sure that you speak to be understood and listen to understand. So think about what you're going to say. Make sure that you're using your words carefully, and make sure that you're listening to what other people have to share, because really it's an opportunity for you to learn from their experience.
Be present and be engaged. So this is a unique opportunity to be gathered with youth and elders from across the state. So being really present in those conversations and really engaged so you learn from each other.
Value our time together. So if you're like me and you're the kind of person who in a conversation may share a lot, it's an opportunity for you to step back. And if you're the kind of person who often stays silent in a conversation, it's your opportunity to step up.
And this is a safe space for meaningful conversation. So we want this to be a space where people can say what really needs to be said without anything happening after. So when someone's sharing maybe a really deep personal thought, taking the lesson of what they're trying to share with you and not the source of who's saying it.
We are going to identify some of the challenges that we face, but we really want to focus in on the solutions, especially in this conversation. So thinking about the kinds of solutions that we can put forward. And really this is an opportunity if you're the kind of person who thinks to themselves, oh, I probably shouldn't say that when we're thinking about solutions, share them. Little solutions, big solutions, dream big, share the small steps. All of that's important.
Takest thou hats off? So this just means bringing your whole self to the table. So we all have different roles that we play in our community. We're aunties and uncles and granddaughters, grandsons. And we just want to make sure that you bring all of those roles to the table and all those experiences with you.
Our value of humor helps us, and we saw that just on the stage here. That was really an amazing opportunity to see our value of humor embedded in a good lesson.
We are responsible for our experience. So really, if you're engaged and you're putting yourself into this conversation, I think you'll get a lot out of it.
Finally, take care of yourself and take care of each other. So if you need to take care of yourself, please do so. We know that it can be challenging sometimes to talk about deep, hard stuff. But we also want to make sure that you know that you're supposed to take care of each other. And so if you see somebody who may be having a hard time, it's okay to help them out.
And if you have any questions, we'll have First Alaskan staff floating around while we're having this conversation. So if you have any questions, just flag them down and we'll do our best to answer.
So if we can agree to uphold our agreements for this dialogue time, yes? Yes, thank you. Can you help us uphold these agreements with each other? Thank you. So the question that we want you guys to be thinking about after listening to the messages that were shared with us, we want you to think about, what do we need to pass on to our future ancestors? Think about those values that we were hearing about in that beautiful keynote presentation. Think about what they were sharing with us. What is it that we need to pass on to our future generations? That's your question. If you are at a table with no elder, please find a table with an elder and have a conversation with an elder. And we're going to go ahead and let you guys get started.
If we follow our cultural identity and values, it automatically perpetuates itself among the children that are around you, because that's just how I remember picking that up from. I was very fortunate to know my great-grandparents, and then when they passed on, my grandparents and their whole extended family. But that's what they stressed. And I'm only up here because my wife said I could come. And we've been married 46 years. And I know she's the foundation of who I am in our little family because she really upholds to the standards of values and reminds me every once in a while in a good way of who I am and how really when I go home from speaking for our clan or even in our community, I go home to answer to her because sometimes she remembers a lot more than I do because my mind is always going along. Like they say on the male side, it's the women that are the anchors of the relationship.
It's it's just imperative to us that our children are surrounded with love and they know how much they're loved, and that just can make all the difference. And you can be an auntie or a honorary auntie, but I think that's certainly an ancestral value that I got from my parents and have strived to move on to my own kids.
What I would want to see in our communities to this depends on your region, that the grandparents and the parents work together and to teach and speak their language, teach them their values. Otherwise, look at us now. I'm not so sure how much of us in our generation know how that are fluent and know how to speak the language itself, know the values, and go by the values. Our lifestyle also is plays an important role in our lives, knowing that we're in Alaska where we have wild game everywhere. Like the grandparents and the parents teach their sons and grandsons to hunt, but the women, the grandmas and the grandmothers, teach their daughters and granddaughters how to fulfill it, play, and subsist on fish and so forth. One thing too is each of us is a representation of our ancestors and how they're here with us at this conference too. They're either happy with us or they're angry with us of how we are today in this civilized world, I guess. Um, pretty much, we have to take notice on how we're influencing, our teens and younger kids too, that are coming behind us. Um, with that saying, we have there's like a lot of younger kids behind us coming after us, and then they're starving to learn about who we are and where we come from. In that saying.
I agree with what you said. I feel like the elders and the parents really need to get more involved. I notice a lot, like in Dillingham and probably up to Lake 2 because we're right next to each other, that they just say like, well, I'm going to go do this. They never say, well, I'm going to go do this and you should come and watch me. You should come and watch how I split the fish. Come watch how I put these berries away and how I have everything cleaned. I know if I knew that stuff was going on, like at my grandma's house, if I knew more when she was splitting fish or when she was doing stuff like that, I would want to go over and go help her and just watch so I could learn. And then another thing I had to say was I agree with what you said when you said that we should always remind people of our cultural values. So I thought maybe like if you see something that you wouldn't want in your smokehouse from last year, like then you could just speak up and tell them like, what does that have to do with our culture? Like, what does that bring to the table for us, metaphorically,
So
My grandmother taught me that if you lead with love, you will never stand alone. And I think that's a really important important lesson, and I would like to make sure that my children follow that rule when they are moving forward in the world. She also taught us, and it was with a lot of love and a little bit of fear, that wherever you go in the world, you will always be a representative of your family and your community and your tribe and your people. And so conduct yourself accordingly, because you may be the only person from our family that the world ever meets, or the only Yupik someone ever meets, and they will judge and they will think of every Yupik who comes after us by the standard that you set. And I think that's a really important one. One of the things, of course, we always say to respect our elders, which is important, very important. But one nuance that she taught me is there's no such thing as a future elder. We are all an elder to someone younger than us. And so if you're a first grader, you are an elder to a kindergartner or a preschooler. And so you need to conduct yourself accordingly. We are all elders to someone. And whether we realize it or not, they are watching us. And that's a pretty big responsibility, which I think is a good thing. I guess finally, one thing that I did, I wanted to make sure is that I taught all my kids how to fish and how to put up fish. My mom's rule was, if you're old enough to walk, then you're old enough to help. And you learn so much from fishing and working together and working hard and taking care of things to make sure that things don't spoil, that things taste just right. And it really instills the value of working together as a family, and making sure that you plan ahead to have what your family needs. And there's so many lessons. I think probably in the interest of time, I won't cover them all, but I think that's one thing that I've tried to teach all of my children is how to fish and how to put up fish.
We, in our village of 550 people in Cake, there's about a dozen hunters of seal. And as far as I know, there are people that always have seal grease in the village. If they're hungry for seal, they'll, in a roundabout way, let you know they would like some seal. They don't just say, could you go get me seal? They'll say, oh, the way your dad used to make seal was delicious. And as a big hint, or my brother Gary, same way. He makes it just like my father did. But I know, like when your mom was telling, your grandparents were telling us, when we were putting up food, like I went over to see the seal being demonstrated, how things were done with it. There was a lot of laughter over in that corner of the big crowd, but we know that people that, when they work on food, they're thinking good thoughts, they're thinking about the future, who they're going to share it with, and that there's laughter in it. And my father said, don't hold a grudge when you work on food that you're putting up and you're going to be sharing. Because if you do, that food's going to spoil. And we know that to be true on several occasions that I know of. But the part I liked when I heard the lady speaking about transitioning on to the other world, about how our spirit is with us, and then how the soul is with us. We know the spirit of our ancestors are always around us. They're always helping us out. The part of the soul in our culture, we use the memorial potlatch, the ko'i, to let it go, to end our grieving, to get on with our life. If we don't go through that process, the old people say our ancestors will always be there. They'll do that, they'll remind us, they'll close a door, the book will fall on the floor.
So you guys have been taking some notes
People
at your
say,
table,
what was
and
that?
we want
To me,
make
it
sure
always,
that we
it's the
grab
soul
them this
being
time.
there
So
reminding,
to our
you
young
can let me go now.
ambassadors, if you can please go
But
around the room and
we
grab
believe we
those
transition
tasty
on,
bits, all those notes that you have
and
been writing,
in
and
our
bring
way
them
of
up to the
getting our
front here. We
names
really appreciate it.
back and reincarnated, like our grandson, like I told yesterday. That's Shawan. And he has that name. But the way she explained it just brought that back, how the ceremonies that we do, the process of grieving that we have is very tangible. And how we let the soul go on, but we always keep the spirit in our hearts. That's what I got from the elder that was here. And it's imperative as part of our cultural values to pass that stuff on to our children and grandchildren.